It's a bit crazy to say that we're only a few days out from what was the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump in 2 months. And there's concerns internationally that the U.S. could be spiraling towards civil war. I know. Time to drink, they say, because Tim said civil war. But don't look at me. I mean, the New York Times is the one that reported this. International community, whatever you want to call it, foreign countries are concerned that come this November, 47 days, there will be uncertainty, there will be chaos, no one will accept the results, and New York Times literally uses the term civil war. Well, this morning I saw this story breaking, but it's actually from a couple weeks ago. It's only now just coming to the point where people are learning more about what happened. About a dozen or so Trump supporters standing on stage near him at a rally are beginning to report or have been reporting mysterious injuries. Now, some people say, what does it mean, mysterious? It just tells us, well, we don't know. Literally, some are saying, well, I believe the most common affliction is their eyes. They're struggling to see. Some have said that they had to cover their eyes because it was too bright. They would open their eyes. They couldn't see anything. Now, we could simply say eye injuries, but there's also reports that it was affecting people's sinuses as well. Their noses were runny. It could be, I suppose, as simple as some kind of chemical irritant. I don't know. Maybe the people were staying on the stage and there's some kind of chemical that accidentally got released in low quantities that no one noticed. So the people all there had something happen to their eyes. I have no idea. But it is a strange story to see, and it is terrifying considering we just saw a guy perched outside of Trump's golf course, lying in wait, Secret Service shooting at him. I think people don't realize that if there is truly an effort to harm individuals, to go after Trump supporters, you ain't seen nothing yet. So what is this? Accident? I don't know. Naturally occurring gas leak of some sort that affected only this one small area? No idea. Some people are saying directed energy weapons, microwave blasts, Havana syndrome. I have no idea, but people are reporting this. And what's the point of it? I don't know. No idea. Again, accident or otherwise. So we'll talk about this, what it means for the upcoming election. We've got news pertaining to Israel, Hezbollah, and fears of, we got the civil war on one side, we got the World War III on the other. But now Israel is retaliating, bombing southern Lebanon. Lebanon, of course, has been firing rockets. Hezbollah has been firing rockets. This stuff is escalating with Israel launching its second wave of implanted explosive devices. And of course, now around the world, they're sitting there being like, maybe things are going to burst. So we'll talk about that. Plus, a couple other stories. One of them is actually rather interesting, but, not the most big breaking news. You don't normally like to do big stories that are of international consequence, but there's a story. You can actually see it on the screen right now. Teenager shot and killed her mom, texted her friends, lured her stepdad, and tried to kill him too. What I find fascinating about it is the father saying it looked like she saw a demon. I wonder what that means. I wonder what people believe. But I do think that there's an interesting conversation around family, around children, and around this story. And we'll get a little supernatural with it just for the sake of it and try and be as sensitive as we can to the idea or to the fact of this teenage girl. But the story was interesting to me because they said she was completely normal, blacked out completely, and then just tried to murder her parents. And so there's questions about the scientific. Is it just the parents were abusive? Or is there something else here? She had a psychotic episode from the drugs she was being given. What we're doing to young people, how they're developing. I think there's a big conversation around that. So we're going to talk about all of this, my friends. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew Coffee. Cast Brew Coffee, that's our coffee company. We're currently working on our first location, which has been jammed up because we have a historical building. Yeah, I know. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea, but we're going to try and open a smaller cafe across the street, or a couple streets down. But we are working on expanding Cast Brew and opening multiple locations across the country as quickly as we can. So head over to castbrew.com, pick up our coffee. Everybody loves Appalachian Nights. Ground, sold out, but whole bean is still available. And then, of course, we've got a bunch of different flavors. Rise with Roberto Jr., I should say blends, my friends. Rise with Roberto Jr. is a very popular blend. Head over to timcast.com and click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly. As a member, you get access to our members-only Discord server where you can hang out with like-minded individuals and argue. But you can also join the members-only show. This is Timcast members-only call-in show Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. where you as members join the show, talk to us and our guests. and get involved. Right now, we have officially filed our lawsuit against the Harris campaign for defamation. I refuse to stand idly by while they spread egregious lies about me. We must stand up for ourselves. If you want to support our work and our efforts, then go to timcast.com right now and sign up. Click sign up, $10 a month. We can use your support. But let's start with this story, ladies and gentlemen. We have this from the Daily Mail mystery, as Trump supporters suffer odd medical condition after sitting behind former president at Arizona rally. Now, the one thing we can agree on with this story is that it's mysterious. We don't know what it is. Nobody has any official reports. But when I first saw the story, I didn't believe it. And so I said, that's got to be the lead, right? Here's how the New York Post frames it. Trump supporters who sat on stage during Arizona rally suffering from mysterious eye injuries. It's unbearable. Now, look, right off the bat, the first thing we have to say is we do not know what this is. It's very weird. We don't know what it is. But oh boy, are we going to speculate. Because what could cause a dozen or so people in one area to suffer from some strange medical condition that affects their eyes, their nose? They can't see. I mean, look, it sounds right off the bat like these people suffered some kind of tear gas. That's what I thought when I saw this. But how are they going to get some kind of nerve agent or tear gas at a Trump rally behind Donald Trump? Considering what we saw 2 months ago, what we saw a few days ago, I fear the worst. Someone with bad intentions coming to a Trump rally, or worse, government actors or state actors. One of the stories we have for you today, actually, that'll come up later in the show, Iran hacked the Trump campaign and was trying to send the materials to the Biden camp. The Daily Mail reports. Supporters of Donald Trump say they've suffered from mysterious eye injuries after sitting behind him at a rally in Tucson this week. At least half a dozen people, half a dozen people, said they were seated on stage behind Trump as the candidate addressed the spiraling cost of living crisis and unveiled a populist new policy promising to end tax on overtime. But after the event, they became afflicted with a mysterious malady. Some complained of dealing with irritation of the eyes and needing medical condition. Myra Rodriguez, a former Clinton supporter turned Trump fan and pro-life advocate, said that her eyes were burning once she left the rally and headed for the emergency room shortly after getting home from the speech. The emergency room staff from the triage nurse to the PA asked, "Are you sure you didn't get sprayed with something? Your symptoms look like you got sprayed with something." That's immediately what I thought, like pepper spray or something. She said that whatever happened, for a couple days afterward, she had nearly gone blind. "I can't see anything when I try to open my eyes. I see a bright light. It hurts. It hurts a lot to open my eyes. I have this cold cloth I put on and take off constantly. It's horrible." Rodriguez said that by Tuesday, her vision had begun to return, and it doesn't appear to be a permanent problem. However, she became more troubled when she started to hear stories from other people who attended this and sat near her. It kept getting worse and worse. My eyes were watering a lot. My nose started running. Then I started feeling my face get flush and my neck felt like it was on fire. And it just progressed from there. Another attendee who remained anonymous told KVOA, numerous outlets reporting different individuals suffering similar symptoms. At least one other Trump supporter, a local realtor, had to cancel all of her scheduled business for the weekend due to blindness. A Trump campaign spokesperson said the operation is looking into these cases. Take a look at this photo. Myra Rodriguez apparently has this image of herself with a cold cloth on her face. The Trump campaign has been collecting information. We remain committed to the countless patriots that attend our high-energy, high-impact rallies across the country. A spokesperson for the Secret Service said there was no known threat to President Trump. Much of the speech was taken up with his debate against Kamala Harris. Trump railed against moderators and said he had no need for another meeting with Harris after his monumental victory. I'll pause there and say we're going to pull up the polls, but based on the current polls, Trump may need to actually get in there and get another debate. Harris was declared the winner of the debate in a Daily Mail snap poll. They also said that she was the winner of the vibe war. Ooh, the vibe war. I'm not so sure I believe that. There's a funny post I saw where someone said that, I can't remember, some liberal, that they were talking to a guy at a store and he was like, yeah, we made it through the pandemic, but now we got to deal with a recession. And the liberal's like, actually, there is no recession. The economy is doing well. Vibes. Dude, I just love this. On a piece of paper on the TV, they say, we got no recession. The economy's doing great. Meanwhile, people are sitting there being like, I can't afford bread. So I'll tell you something funny. I want to give it to the Trump campaign on this one. So there's a viral video that people are sharing of Kamala Harris, and she's going, they are now saying they want to enact the largest deportation in American history. Imagine what that would look like. And then it immediately goes, I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message. Just like, yes, we do. So they're running ads on YouTube where Kamala Harris goes, the price of bread has gone up this amount. The price of gas is up this. The price of rent is up this. And then it just cuts right to Trump. I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message. Masterfully done. Masterfully done. So by all means, talk about who you think won the debate, I suppose. They want to say that the latest data from JL Partners Daily Mail election model, which currently crunches decades of data, along with the latest polls and forecasts, suggests it currently leans Trump. His visit attracted criticism from the off. There's a typo there. Mexican-American singer Linda Ronstadt condemned him for his hatred before his appearance in her namesake musical. It saddens me to see the former president bring his hate show to Tucson, a town with deep Mexican-American roots and a joyful, tolerant spirit. I don't just deplore his toxic politics, his hatred of women, blah, blah. Okay, we get it. I don't, this is not relevant. Okay. We'll grab some more information here. I can see that some people are saying it sounds like UV burns, similar to flash burns welders get when helmets fail. But does that explain runny noses? Is a runny nose another component of that? It could be. Anybody who's ever, not everybody, but many people, if you're feeling like you might sneeze and you look at a bright light and it makes you sneeze, isn't that weird? So maybe there's something to it. They go to mention the New York Post basically the same things. Thinking it was just her allergies acting up, Rodriguez got in a car and began the 90-minute drive back to Phoenix. However, her eye irritation becomes so severe during her ride home that she rushed to the emergency room. Once she arrived at the hospital, the triage nurse said that she may have been sprayed with something. So this is Rodriguez and others are seen greeting Trump on stage at the rally. I don't know. Could it be? I wonder if this guy right here, these guys with the hats, actually, these three guys, because they got a brand protecting their eyes. Could it have been some light being used in the studio, blasting them with UV ray, like UV or something they didn't notice and it was burning them? And so it injured their eyes? No idea. But I do love Marty McFly over here. And I mean that in the most endearing way imaginable. This man at the Trump rally who looks like Marty McFly from Back to the Future. Bravo on your outfit. Good sir, maybe that was on purpose. Now, the reason why I think this is interesting is the mysterious nature of it. And I think it lends itself to a larger question about what people are looking for when it comes to attacks, danger, violence, etc. The AP reports false reports of explosives found in car near a Trump rally spread online. I love how they're acting like, what is this? Can we just get rid of this, AP? Like, how am I supposed to read your website? That's so stupid. Anyway, yesterday, while we were live on this show, breaking news came in, literally popped down on the Daily Mail as I was reading the story, saying explosives were found at a rally just outside a Trump rally in Long Island. Turns out they're saying it was a false alarm. It was a false report of an explosion began circulating. And Nassau County Police Commissioner said that they had questioned and detained a person who may have been training a bomb detection dog near the site of the rally and falsely reported explosives being found. That's very weird. Just got to say. But they did say they removed a weird barrel. Let's talk about the threats and the fears that we see right now. So we have these stories. We have the sentiment from Democrats that are shocking and worrying pertaining to Trump's, the assassination attempts on Trump's life. I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want people to look into this. But I can tell you this. You know, I remember working with, 10 or 12 years ago. Actually, this is probably 14 years ago. Some individuals who worked at various universities in California. And these are hackers and they're biochem people and things like that. And they'd talk about how the universities have access to chemicals, molecules, elements, blah, 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 compounds or whatever. Not molecules, but technically that's a different. But they have compounds and chemicals. And they're like, it's actually kind of scary because there are certain materials that are just abundant at these universities that, like, if you touch, you die. I'm not going to talk about what those are. Firefighters and EMTs probably know a lot about this stuff as well, places of residence. And then they'd start to experience these symptoms. Now, many brushed this off as nothing, saying that actually nothing happened. It just, some people just get sick. I don't believe it. Now, I don't know for sure. I don't know enough about Havana syndrome. But I got to say, when dozens of people start reporting the same phenomenon, humming, buzzing, or whatever. Then all of a sudden they all start getting lightheaded, they get dizzy, and they can't see very well. That doesn't seem like a coincidence for a group of people in the same area at the same time. I remember reading about ultra low frequency attacks, and I was reading about this a long time ago. This was pertaining to haunted houses and ghosts. I was reading a theory or a hypothesis that the phenomena of hauntings is actually related to areas of the planet where there could be ultra low frequency sound or vibrations coming from the earth that we can't hear, that are hard to detect, but can cause people to feel hallucinations. I was reading about how they did this experiment where they put a magnet helmet on some guy's head. A bunch of people said, actually. And they blasted their brain with massive waves of magnetism, and people said they felt the presence of God. I wonder then, reading about this, these ultra low frequencies that pass through people and give them a sense of dread or foreboding or some kind of demonic presence, could that be that they're actually just, being hit with some unseen force? Upon reading about this, I learned about the U.S. military and various military contractors' efforts to weaponize this phenomenon upon hearing about it. Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's true and they can actually do it or it's real. Never forget the U.S. government engaged in that program, the Project Stargate. They made a movie about the men who stare at goats, where they actually tried to have people develop psychic powers. Not kidding. Okay, they do a lot of weird things. So I'm not saying any of this is real. I'm just saying militaries have tried to find ways forever to create undetectable means of attack. I was thinking about this too. Go back 1,000 years or whatever. 1,000 years. Get a sniper on a hilltop with modern technology today and have him engage in a standard military sniper operation like we hear about in the movies. And the enemy warlords are standing there when all of a sudden they hear a thunder crack. They don't know what the sound is. And then their friend just drops dead. And they're thinking the gods struck him down. It was magic. They couldn't see anything. They heard a boom and the guy just instantly was dead. They think that was magic. It's undetectable to a people of that technological advancement. So when you look at where we are today, we all know what guns are. So when you hear a bang and then someone falls, you think he got shot because we know how guns work. But imagine if a military developed a weapon, Havana syndrome perhaps, that we did not know how to perceive or could not perceive. Then things get really scary. Because what I see now, look at this story from SCNR. Shock poll. 28% of Democrats say U.S. would benefit from Trump assassination. Nearly half of Democrats suspect Trump or his campaign may be behind assassination attempts. They think Trump's actually staging it. Now, the scary thing is more than a quarter, 20% of Democrats, they actually think we'd be better if Trump lost his life. The question then becomes, are any of these people interested in pursuing such a feat? Do any of these people work in government? And there's a scary prospect here. July 13th, Donald Trump gets shot in the side of the head, narrowly avoiding death. And the question I asked when this went down was simple. Does Trump derangement syndrome exist? We all know it does. People are irrationally angry about Donald Trump. The next question is, are there people who want Donald Trump's life to be forfeit? I'm trying to be nice and delicate how I explain this. Terrifyingly, yes. Look at this poll. 28% of Democrats want it to happen. And you see people do these man on the street interviews where they ask people and the people respond in the affirmative. There are terrifyingly large sums of people who want to see that happen to Trump, that Trump loses his life. And then the last question was, is it possible that some of these people with Trump derangement syndrome work in the federal government? The answer is, of course. I mean, look at the Russiagate stuff. We know for a fact they're trying to put the guy in prison. The question then becomes, if all of these things are true, there is a terrifyingly large probability, it may be single digits, but still terrifyingly large, that there are elements within the U.S. government right now that seek to or would pursue some means to end Donald Trump's life. That's the terrifying reality in which we exist. SCNR reports this alarming sentiment reflects deep political divisions that have become more pronounced in recent years. It is hard to imagine a greater threat to democracy than expressing a desire to have your political opponent murdered, said Scott Rasmussen, president of RMG Research. The former president has now faced 2 assassination attempts in as many months. with speculation that more attempts could follow as the 2024 election approaches. And I will stress this to all of you, my good friends. We actually saw this after the first attempt, a Secret Service agent publishing a letter saying that they feared this will happen again. Now, they said it definitively. It will happen again. In a further indication of how polarized the political landscape has become, nearly half of Democrats expressed doubt about the legitimacy of the assassination attempt. Further reflecting just how polarized the American political environment is, they don't believe the attack was legitimate. 49% said it was likely that Trump or his campaign was somehow involved, with 21% saying it was very likely. That's right. After someone shoots Trump in the side of the head, nearly killing him, instantly, Democrats were posting that they believe Donald Trump fell to the ground and popped a blood pack in his hat to put the fake blood in his ear. Or, I love this one, a lot of people were claiming that Trump pulled off that old WWE move where they hold a small piece of metal, a small sharp piece of metal, and then they slice the side of their head to make a wound and then start bleeding. So there's actual blood, but it's fake. Yeah, no. Yeah, none of that. People died. And so it is insane. Look, Occam's razor, man. I am not big on, I do not like conspiracy theories. Show me the proof and we will try to walk down the path of least resistance here, making the least amount of assumptions to figure out what is actually going on. So this idea that Donald Trump is staging his own is conspiring to make fake assassination attempts is insane. It's funny how they simultaneously say this guy is hot-headed, can't handle himself on stage with Kamala Harris. He gets easily riled up and fumbles. Then they're claiming they've been able to pull off these sophisticated and circuitous plans that involve killing his own supporters. And what I love about this, staging blood packs in his hat. Get out of here, man. That would mean that the entire Secret Service, local cops, everybody are in on this grand scheme. Yeah, I just don't buy that. They say on the other side, 52% of Republicans believe it's likely that the Democratic Party or the campaign of Vice President Kamala Harris played a role in the attempt, with 28% calling it very likely. And this is where it gets absolutely terrifying. 28% of Democrats saying that we'd be better off if Trump, kicked the bucket. 28% of Republicans believing it's very likely that Democrats or even Vice President Harris played a role. Now, look, I don't know about Harris being involved. What I can say is I don't think it's unreasonable to argue that there was some official involvement. Why? This is not a conspiracy theory. Now, the media will lie and claim it is. They're lying. Because I am not stating that I believe that there is evidence or anything to suggest that elements of the U.S. government worked together on a plot behind the scenes for some nefarious criminal means, which is what a conspiracy is. I'm saying that when we're approaching an investigation as to how this shooter in Butler, PA, was able to bypass Secret Service, go on a roof without any kind of security, was able to walk around with a backpack or whatever he had, was identified. They were like all of these strange things that happened. You have to say, what is the path of least resistance here in the solution? And unfortunately, cascade failure requires too many assumptions. He got lucky. This one time he snuck past. No one was looking. He carried a backpack into a Trump rally. He flew a drone over the rally. All of these things happened perfectly where the Secret Service just happened to be the agent was tying his shoe as he flew the drone. And then when he got up and looked, the drone flew away and he didn't notice. Spare me. That's ridiculous. There is actually a really, really simple solution. One Trump deranged logistics agent or officer just said, we don't need nobody on the roof. That's it. And this opened a gaping hole, allowing this guy to get in, which is official capacity. It's at the same point. You could argue that they just failed to secure the roof, but that requires several assumptions on top of it. Why? Because local police stated that for several days they had been warning Secret Service to protect the roof. It is standard protocol to protect the roof. It is standard protocol to keep the president or the protectee in the holding zone if there is any kind of warning or threat. They identified a threat. So the question then becomes, how does a guy bypass security after they call him out? Why doesn't anyone respond when people are screaming he's got a gun? Why was Trump released from holding? Why wasn't Trump pulled from the stage? Once again, you don't need a conspiracy. One person hey, we got a weird guy walking around. What do we do? Someone in logistics just goes, don't worry, we're on top of it. Carry on. And they ignore it. Hey, there's nobody on this roof. Aren't we supposed to have guys up there guarding the roof? All right, don't worry, we're on it. And then do nothing. It could have just been one person falsely coordinating, one person trying to make sure that they were holes. And then how does Trump get released from holding? Hey, we got a report of a threat. Are we good? You're good. It's that simple. Nobody's in on anything. Nobody has any idea what's going on. It's one bad person just doing bad things. Because I got to tell you, I don't know how this guy Crooks was able to get through all these layers of security, and the Secret Service made every mistake possible. That's a conspiracy theory. I'm sorry. The idea that everything, like, go buy 10 lottery tickets, you'll win each of them. I just don't buy it. Well, my friends, you may be thinking things may get better, things may get worse. I don't know. But I can tell you right now, the game is afoot. Data scientist who correctly called last election makes shock blowout claim. This dude is claiming that Kamala Harris is going to win in a landslide election. Northwestern University data scientist Thomas Miller said that Harris will knock Trump in a landslide election, telling Fortune magazine it's gone from a drastic landslide in Trump's direction to a drastic landslide for Harris. Miller first gained attention for accurately predicting the 2020 presidential election by unconventionally using betting markets rather than traditional polls to forecast the outcome. He achieved this by developing a model which is based on 16 presidential elections that converted betting prices into the popular vote and electoral college projections. This model shows a narrow correlation between betting odds and the anticipated popular vote. Now, here's what's interesting about this. Let me see if I can pull up the betting average. Do we have this over here? Let me pull it up, because there is a self-fulfilling prophecy that I think is worth looking at. So first, when you take a look at the betting odds at Real Clear Polling, Harris has 52.4 to Trump's 46.1. But I hope y'all understand this means everybody who bet on Kamala Harris is going to be voting for Kamala Harris, telling all their friends to vote for Kamala Harris. And that sentiment matters. Now, there's a lot of people betting on Donald Trump. Sure. Don't get me wrong. And they're going to be doing the same thing. But there's slightly more for Harris, which means I don't think that, you go out and you tell people you got to vote, you got to support Trump, you got to do all this stuff. And that works. But the motivation behind getting and rallying for Trump is going to be ideological. Now, when we take a look at people who are motivated by money, they're going to go out and vote for sure because they got money on the line. They're going to go and advocate to every single person they know to go vote for Harris because they got money on the line. And imagine this. It could be as simple as a bunch of people just being like, I'm going to go campaign for Harris because I put down a ton of money on her to win. I don't care if she's good. Don't care if she's bad. I want my bet. Imagine if you could bet on, the Ravens to win, and you actually had the ability to go and lobby referees and fans or actually impact the game itself to make sure the outcome was leaning in your direction, albeit maybe only a little bit, but enough. People going to do it. There's this guy, I was watching this, I think it was on Fox News, famous guy who sells mattresses, I guess. And then he always does these deals where he's like, if this team wins the Super Bowl, then everyone gets their mattress refunded or something like that. And it's because he was doing something where, he'd take all the profits. I could be totally wrong about this, but something like he'd sell 1,000 mattresses, right? It's just a hypothetical number. And the profit would be $600 a mattress, right? So he's got $600,000. He then bet $600,000 on a team to win the Super Bowl with tremendous odds. And his idea was like, if the team loses, then everybody bought their mattresses. Doesn't matter. I'm going to lose $600,000. Don't care. The costs are all covered. It's just my money that I'm losing. If I win, I'm going to get, $17 million. I can give everybody their $600 back on their mattresses, and everyone gets a huge cash payout. It's actually a kind of funny strategy that the dude is leveraging the profits of his company to gamble. This guy has an interest at a large scale in that team winning the Super Bowl. So it is pretty funny. This guy's a famous guy. I don't know if he's still around or whatever. The idea that Kamala Harris is going to win, though, I think is interesting because I don't know if I believe the polls. The betting averages I look at and I say that's interesting, but that could just be based on the polls. We don't know. The media's knives out. Look at this. The Atlantic says this is what a losing campaign looks like. How does Donald Trump's running mate have so much time on his hands? Thanks, David Frum. We believe what you have to say. It's hard to know for sure. While we're looking at all of these insane prediction models, we got Nate Silver right now saying Trump's 52% to win to Harris's 47.6. Trump was enjoying on September 9th, 64.4%. And since the debate, he tanked. And Nate Silver says these are the polls that are coming in post-debate. Not good for Trump. I don't buy it for 2 seconds. Look at this. You saw the news breaking yesterday. The Teamsters are backing Donald Trump. How in the world does it make sense that Donald Trump is losing these union states when you got UAW in Michigan saying Joe Biden and Harris have screwed us over and taken our jobs from us? It doesn't make sense. Okay, sentiment is clearly with Trump in the states that matter. Kamala talked about banning fracking. Now, I know she's come out and said she doesn't want to do that. She changed her mind. But you can't escape it. Dude, listen, let me tell you this. You got this, you've got Joe Biden shutting down Keystone. You've got Kamala Harris saying she wants to ban fracking. Now she's saying she won't. Then you got Donald Trump the whole time has been in favor of energy and drill and frack and all that stuff. Who are you going to vote for? Bro, if a guy came to me and said he was a police officer who served admirably for 20 years and, he wants to help run security for Timcast, I'd say, okay, who's our next candidate? And a guy walks in and says, I was a burglar that looted and raided a whole bunch of studios that I worked at for 20 years. But today, let me tell you, I've changed my ways and I no longer want to rob the people I work for. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go with the guy who was a cop who has no criminal record. Kamala's record on fracking and energy is the antithesis of what energy sector workers and transportation workers need. She can change her mind all she wants, but she's got a record. Trump's got a good record. So why in anyone's, why now, we get it. You get it. I get it. Let me tell you. Here's what worries me. This data scientist predicting Kamala's going to win in a landslide. The betting markets. I don't think these people are betting on sentiment. Because I got to tell you, if I had to make a bet, in 2016, my bet was Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for her. Don't like her. Didn't vote for Trump either. But I was just like, dude, it's obvious. Clinton is going to win. Why? Because the machine state said so. And then what happens? Trump won. And I laughed, a hearty laugh. Certainly I did. And I was kind of like, wow, I guess elections are real. Who'd have thought? Now, the machine certainly seeks to exert authority and power over our elections to get the desired outcome, but their power only goes so far. Hillary Clinton is so reviled by so many people, she couldn't win. That's amazing. Now, I don't know what the American people actually want en masse. I have a general idea when you look at the Teamsters supporting Donald Trump. That's crazy. I don't know how. When you've got 2-1, the Teamsters supporting Donald Trump. 2-1. That if the Democrats have lost the unions, then how could they possibly win? Shadow campaign. Okay, then I get. So these data scientists are sitting there. This Alan Lichtman guy's like, I've correctly predicted the president every time except for 2000, because that was a weird Supreme Court thing. Uh-huh. Okay. And what if the reality is it's just the machine state, deep state being like, here's what's actually going to happen. Now, the funny thing is, apparently people were saying that Lichtman actually predicted Hillary Clinton was going to win in 2016, but then at the 11th hour changed his prediction to Trump and then turned out to be right. Maybe. I'll tell you what I think, my friends. I hope and I pray that the real conspiracy theory is that Trump actually represents the deep state and they're doing this just to build patriotism. Trump has to be an underdog. Our stories and our movies are always about the underdog defeating the great evil. And so they're thinking, we want to get crackpot anti-government extremists waving the American flag. How do we do it? You need an underdog to come in and take over and defeat the big bad machine. And so they play the heel. The Democrats are evil and do stupid things and lie, cheat, and steal in obvious ways. Donald Trump says, support America. We're going to make America great. And now you got Alex Jones and Luke Rudkowski being like, we're voting for Trump. I'm just saying. Just saying. I wish that were true. I don't think it is, but I wish that were the actual conspiracy. Again, I don't think it is. I'm just saying. That'd be great because it would mean that the real plan of the deep state is to secure our borders and save our country and end all these wars, which it's not, never has been, and likely will not be. The uniparty establishment elites, the neocons, the neolibs, they are a dying breed. They are aging out. And I explained this last night. When I see Dick Cheney endorse Democrats and they all clap and cheer for it, you know what this is? I want you to imagine, I'm not a football guy. but there's probably more football guys than skateboard guys. So imagine a handful of 57-year-old retired, quarterbacks and linebackers or whatever. No, let's just say there's like 1,000 of them. And they all use their money that they've accrued and their wealth and their fame to make it so that you have to be at least 57 years old to play football. All of a sudden, all the football teams are all in their 60s, 65, and the game is increasingly boring. Everyone's tired. They can't throw as far. People are getting injured left and right. And you're sitting here being like, can't we get some young people to play this game so we can actually see the best of the best? It's insane, right? That's what we're looking at right now. This is what we're seeing in politics. Octogenarians. What are they calling it? Septuagenocracy or octogenocracy? Ruled by the 70 and 80-year-olds? These powerful individuals have accrued political means and money. Nancy Pelosi, for example, Mitch McConnell, Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is 60. And they've basically said, we will not hand over the reins of this country to young people, to anybody else. But it's happening either way. It's not so much young people, but new ideas. The younger generations. This whole political thing starts up. I'm in my 20s. Now I'm in my late 30s. We are starting to take the reins of government. Older people are beginning to retire. And you have the vestiges of the old world failing. Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, Dick Cheney, blah, blah, Liz Cheney, struggling to hold on to their glory days. But at a certain point, it may be your passion to play football. You may have been the best quarterback of this or any generation. But sooner or later, the younger generation comes in with different ideas, and you just can't hang anymore. I think that's what we're seeing politically. They say on the left, the old world is dying and the new one is struggling to be born, whatever. And I don't believe that's completely wrong. The left just wants this woke reality. And I do think we are looking at two potentialities. The old guard of the uniparty, left and right, have banded together. Dick Cheney and Kamala Harris. Look at that. Democrats and Republicans. Neocons and neolibs. But they're losing. The left is overwhelmingly communistic, socialist, etc., and the right is populist, libertarian. They overlap in many ways, but mostly agree that the machine state is bad. Though many on the right will still support some elements of the Democratic Party, and the left will support some elements. The Republicans on the right will some elements of the Republican Party, the left some elements of the Democratic Party. But in the end, the neolibs and the neocons cannot hold on forever. Nancy Pelosi is a very, very old woman. Joe Biden is past life expectancy. Donald Trump is nearing life expectancy. So this old guard is not going to be able to hold on for much longer. Whether they like it or not, a new generation will come in, and the sentiments of the younger generation are dramatically different. That's how I see it. So it may not be 2024, but let's talk about 2028 and 2032. I got to tell you, my friends, I do not believe there is a reality where Nancy Pelosi is in any way involved in government in 8 years. I just don't see it. Many of the people that we have in Congress and the Senate are near or past life expectancy, including the Supreme Court. This country is about to change. So I'll give you this warning. The Supreme Court has many individuals who are relatively old on it. If Kamala Harris is to win, there's a strong probability that she will appoint members of the Supreme Court, or worse, very likely they will pack the court. If the Democrats today, and I mean the figurative today, not literally today, I mean this election, if they win the House, the Senate, and the presidency, rest assured we will have 13 Supreme Court justices. They will all of them that are added will be far left. The Democrat Senate will confirm instantly all of them, and this will be the end of America, period. This country will become a vassal state of the liberal economic order. There will never be a Republican candidate ever again. If there is, they're going to be, the joke is in 20 years, the Republican Party is a bunch of transgender communists, and the Democratic Party is AI, because the right won't exist. I'm not convinced we're going that way. So I think we just have to pay attention to what's going on. We're going to jump to the next story. We're going to go to your super chat. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends right now. If everybody who watched the show right now took the URL and shared it on all their social media, we'd have 100,000 plus viewers live every morning. And it's a simple thing that you can do to help the show. Just share it right now. People will click on it. And it makes the show much, much bigger. So we're going to jump to the next story we have for you, talking about fears of, it's funny because I'm like, do I do a segment about how they're concerned a civil war is going to start? We have this one from the New York Times, or about World War III starting. Why not both? How do you say that in Spanish? Why not both? I forgot. There was the meme, what is it? No, what? No, I don't know. I don't know how to speak Spanish, so you get the point. But we're going to go to your super chats, my friends, and we are going to read what y'all have to say. And we'll start with what we got going on here. But again, become a member at Timcast.com to support our work so that we can keep doing the awesome stuff we do every single day in hosting this show as well as other shows. We got David Stein says, thank you, Tim. Appreciate you. Really do appreciate you guys. Of course, as I like to say, considering it's now happened twice to Donald Trump, one like equals one fight again. That's kind of crazy that I got to put the again on there. You know what I mean? All right. Let's go. We'll grab some more super chat. Ryan Lost Broken RO says, sounds like UV burn similar to flash burn welders get when helmets fail. I did read that one earlier, so interesting. I wonder. Machina says there was a Bored Ape NFT event where the guests got eye injuries because the person in charge of lighting used UV lights. It could very well be that simple. That people were standing there, UV lights were blasting them in the faces, and it burned their eyes. But I don't quite understand how their nose started running. Because it wasn't just eyes, it was like they got sprayed. But UV seems to make sense because they were blinded, right? John says fentanyl dust. I'm 100% sure it is that. That would be crazy, man. That would be crazy. All right. Stinky Whizzleteats, that's a name, says you ought to explore the August 30th article by Edward Heckman exploring the connection between Maxwell Urich and Ryan Ruth. I don't know who that is. Sounds interesting. Razgriz says, sounds exactly like what happens when someone is flashed with an IR laser like the kind you use on rifles. Would only be visible to someone under night vision, but depending on exposure time, it could lead to all of those symptoms. Really? Runny nose? I mean, like the sinus and the optic nerve, I think they're connected. That's crazy. ¿Por qué no los dos? That was it. ¿Por qué no los dos? There's that meme of remember the taco commercial? And it's like, should we have, what was it, like soft shell or hard shell? It's like, why not both? Or whatever it was. And that became a meme. Yeah, why not both? All right. Thread says, when your eyes are irritated, it makes your nose run. Crazy. The Patriot Paladin says, I work with CS in the military, and it doesn't have to be smoke form, but lightly added to the vent system or left on in its powder form. That would be crazy, man. That would be absolutely nuts. If there was just like powderized CS or maybe CS residue that somehow got kicked up in the air. I kind of think the either IR or UV makes a lot of sense. The IR stuff I didn't really know about. Bucket Aquatic says, Tim, your stream crapped out for a minute. That being said, the second would-be Trump assassin was also in a BlackRock commercial, just like the first one. That can't be a coincidence. What do you think of it? I saw some commercial of him, but I don't think that was a BlackRock commercial. I'm not sure, but I haven't verified myself, so I can't really comment. I will say, yes, indeed. The other day, we had an interruption on the stream early on, and just in the beginning of this stream, you may have noticed the stream cut out. That's not us. So I reached out to my tech team, and they said that we got backups upon backups. Our internet did not cut out. It's probably YouTube's side. And look, man, I just don't believe in glitches. I don't. They have glitches sometimes, but I genuinely think that the majority of what we see when YouTube does this stuff is intentional friction to make it harder for people to watch this show because they don't want to ban us outright, but they want to inhibit. There's several reasons why YouTube doesn't want to ban channels like mine. They need people who are in opposition to the machine state to feel like they have a release. If there was no show like this, people would be protesting, they'd get upset, sentiment would be crazy, people would be very upset. So what they do is, This is what they were doing on X, it's what they do on YouTube and other platforms. They say, okay, recommendations for new videos should go 51% to the left and 49% to the right. What that will do is, over a long enough period of time, culture will develop around left liberal ideas in reality, and people on the right will struggle to make ends meet and eventually cease to exist. I don't know that that plan is actually working. All right. We'll grab a couple more. I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, considering the response to attempts on Trump's life, as well as life birth, it's almost as though the Malthusians had a successful psyop, which desensitized people to being okay with mass human removal, or it's a natural outcome based on our collective decisions. You all know the scariest thing about the Trump assassination attempts? They're normalized. It should be. Let me tell you, the first assassination attempt, I'm hanging out at Potawatomi Casino in Milwaukee, because we were setting up for the RNC. We had just arrived. What was it, Saturday, I think? There's no studio. I got nothing. I had my phone on me, and people were like, just do a live stream on your phone. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't think to do that. I don't know. Maybe I should have. And so I'm sitting there playing a hand of poker, playing some 1-2, it's called. It's a low stakes. And then I see on my phone, Trump was shot. There's a state rep, a Republican sitting at the table with me. He's familiar with my work. I'm like, did you just see? He's like, yeah, I just saw this. We both saw it. We were like, holy crap. I look up every single TV, sports. And I'm like, in any sane reality, what should have happened in this country is that every TV should have instantly switched to breaking news. Someone should have gone on the PA at this casino and said, ladies and gentlemen, there is breaking reports that Donald Trump has been shot. He is believed to be safe, but this appears to be an assassination attempt. There are several more injuries. We hope everyone stays apprised to the news and pays attention. This is a dark day for our country. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I was at the mall when the second assassination attempt was reported, shots fired, and I laughed because I look around and nobody cares at all. The craziest thing is on that day, on July 13th, after it happened, I will say this too, after the second attempt, I immediately ran outside and grabbed my phone and did a live stream. Got 500,000 views on that stream. So, breaking news, people are right. I should definitely just get some information out because a lot of people had no idea what was going on. And so that was the first they had heard of it. The first assassination attempt, we went to a restaurant, me and Allison, and I asked them, I was like, just curious, did you know that, 2 hours ago, Donald Trump was shot in the side of the head and nearly died in an assassination attempt? And they're like, whoa, I didn't know that. And I'm like, this is just crazy. That's crazy to me. This country is not unified in any sense. Nobody cared. That's weird. My attitude was like, shouldn't everybody be stopping and saying, like, our country is in danger? I don't know. Certainly makes me feel like we live in some kind of simulation where a bunch of NPCs mill about doing nothing. Maybe that's it. There are so many philosophical questions. For all you know, you were born yesterday, and each and every one of your memories and everything you've experienced was actually just programmed into you, and we're all part of a one-day simulation that ends tomorrow. No idea. But let's jump to this next story, my friends. We'll jump to this next story. A lot of people are saying Crowder's latest undercover story. I did see the report. Unfortunately, he didn't release the story until I was already live, so we aren't able to do the pre-production stuff. But the breaking news, of course, that there is a, what is it? I don't even want to say it. During lockdowns in New York, there were, I believe it was a government official having, let's just call them adult parties. I mean, maybe we bring this one up. Maybe we got breaking news. I mean, it's not like we don't do this. This is nuts. Oh, man. Should we go for this one? Should we pull this story up? Oh, heavens mercy me. Look, guys, here's the story. I wanted to talk to you about Israel and World War III and potential civil war, but maybe we can lead with this. The breaking Crowder news. I think we'll do that. We'll talk about the NYC COVID czar held secret drug-fueled sex parties during the pandemic. These people are corrupt. I got bad news, I guess. I guess that bad news is that nobody cares anymore. But I should probably save this And we'll just start with, whoa, this is wild. When you go to search, it instantly just shows the video going viral from Crowder on X. Like, not kidding. This is kind of, I clicked search, and the top banner showed the Crowder story. So let's roll with it. Let's talk about where we are. Steven Crowder's breaking report. We'll jump on this one. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll zoom in on this one. There we go. We get it nice and big so you can read all of this. Undercover reporting from Steven Crowder. Very impressive stuff. And shout out to the Crowder team and the work they've been doing. This is not the first time they've broken something big. So we'll jump to this story. Ladies and gentlemen, we got breaking news coming from the Louder with Crowder team that is shocking and offensive. Now, the news was released earlier this morning, but the official report didn't come out till TimcastNews Live had begun. But we now have the updates. NYC COVID czar held secret drug-fueled sex parties during the pandemic. That's right. While in New York, your business was shut down. Your inventory rotted and was destroyed. And you struggled to survive. While we saw videos of police threatening to arrest store owners for live streaming their products. I kid you not. This guy brags about how he was having drug-fueled sex parties. Dr. Jay Varma, former senior advisor of public health in the New York City mayor's office, quote, I had to be kind of sneaky about it. I was running the entire COVID response for the city. We rented a hotel. We all took Molly. 8 to 10 of us were in a room, just being naked with friends. What the? I'm going to tell you right now. I'll play this video for you. I don't know how to say this other than I think this country is falling apart. I think this country is falling apart. Because people don't care. I was mentioning before this segment, for those that are watching just the short segment, not the full live show, that after the first assassination attempt on Trump, I was shocked that I was at a casino. I was at Potawatomi in Milwaukee. I was shocked that they didn't turn every TV to the breaking news. I was shocked they didn't get on the intercom and say, ladies and gentlemen, the former president was just shot. This is breaking news. He is safe. I was surprised. Nobody knew. And so I'd asked a few people, did you know that this just happened? Nope. Oh, really? People just don't care. So what we are getting is this surface level platitude. Dr. Jay Varma, this guy, he says, I was actually the one who convinced the mayor to make it a vaccine mandate. He forced people to receive a medical treatment, regardless of doctor's orders. We saw this. Forced. You had to have your card to go to bars. And what was he doing? Well, according to this report, he was having drug-fueled sex parties. Yeah. Committing an untold number of crimes. Now, I'd like to add just the strange degeneracy of what is going on in government. 8 to 10 people standing around having a naked drug-fueled party is weird. But hey, man, I'm fairly libertarian, I don't know. But the hypocrisy is insane. Look, in New York, when people were undergoing these lockdowns and these mandates, restaurants, small restaurants, they've got $20,000 to $30,000 in food inventory in their refrigerators. When they shut the businesses down and people weren't allowed to go and buy food or go out, or heavily restricted, I should say, this food rotted and had to be thrown in the garbage. You have to sell that food. Otherwise, you go out of business. So what happened was when they started to open everything back up and say, you're now allowed to open your store. What was it? 2 weeks to slow the spread. Donald Trump was one who pushed that too. The restaurant said, I don't have 20 grand to restock. And it's going to take, 6 days or whatever to get all the stock back in so that we can start making our sauces and cooking the meats and things like this. But where do we get that money from? You're a restaurant operating on thin margins. You buy $100 worth of meat, you sell it for, $150 or whatever, then you got to pay down all your costs, and you make a tiny profit, small percentage. If that meat rots, you're negative $100. You need to now reinvest $100. While this is happening, this is what we hear.
I actually was the one who convinced the mayor to make it a mandate.
Like, New York City found out that you're having sex parties during COVID?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been real bad. We went to some like underground like dance party like underneath a bank in Wall Street, and we were all rolling. We were all taking Molly.
Underneath a bank on Wall Street, we're all rolling, taking Molly.
And everybody's high, and I was so happy because I hadn't done that in like a year and a half, like a year or whatever. And but I was looking around, being like, I wonder if anybody sees me looking differently, because this was not COVID friendly. The only way I could do this job for the city was if I had some way to blow off steam every now and then. You're kind of sneaky about it because hotels didn't want people gathering there. Because I was like running the entire COVID response of the city. My wife and I like had one with our friends, like in August of like that first summer. So we rented a hotel, and it was fun. We all like took like Molly, and just like it was like 8 or 9 of us, and then 8 to 10 of us in a room, and everybody had a blast because everybody was like so pent up because it had been like everybody was just like stuck together and stuff like that. Yeah, and sometimes it isn't so much about like executives. Some it's just something about like bodies being
it's about being bodies close to each other.
Naked with friends.
Was that like when everyone was like walking out?
It was like the summer of 2020. So like walk around the streets, you could eat outdoors.
Did you have like any mandates in place?
There wasn't any restrictions on gathering. Like you could technically gather people. The hotels didn't want to necessarily parties, but they weren't gonna like.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like because I did all this like deviant like sexual stuff while I was like like on TV and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And people were like, aren't you afraid? Aren't you embarrassed? And I was like, no, actually, I'm like really like I love being my authentic self. So the way we do it in public health is we make it very uncomfortable to be unvaccinated. I don't expect your education to change your behavior. I'm just gonna make it really hard for you to do your job.
Wow.
You can't get a job. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to school. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna get vaccinated.
So was it technically like kind of forcing people?
Yeah, that's what you force people by making it really uncomfortable.
Wow. Bravo to the Louder with Crowder team. This is massive. Now, I got to tell you guys, we knew this stuff because we're smart, discerning individuals. You can easily surmise, you can easily infer. When they're doing things like no one is being forced to get vaccinated, and then they go, but you can't go to work, you can't go to the movies, you can't see your dying grandfather, because that's just, your choice. They called it a choice, but they knew the game they were playing. I refer to these as social pressure systems. That is, you want to create enough pressure on one side to force someone to take an action that you want, or friction. This is, I was talking about this actually just before we did the segment. Social media, how does censorship work? When they ban Steve Bannon and the War Room from YouTube and all these platforms, everybody's watching. They instantly jump to iTunes or any other platform. So an outright ban doesn't necessarily work. They go after Alex Jones. They do slice off his revenue, but it's taken years to try and stop the man, and he's still doing his show. And he still gets massive viewership. Certainly, they've harmed his business to a great degree. So how do you deal with the problem? What you need to do is construct new habits for people to reverse trends. How they do this is exactly as he's described. You either make it increasingly difficult to do a certain behavior, you make it increasingly easier to do a different behavior, and then you hope that people are stupid enough and fall into those patterns. How does that work in censorship? On the front page of YouTube, you're going to see Stephen Colbert. Colbert's going to lie to you, but it's so easy. They say, we get people who are members. Smash that like button. Become a member at timcast.com to support our work. But members say, it's very hard for me to find the show when it's live. And now I've seen someone super chat the other day saying, I have no problem finding the show because I'm not a moron. But understand the purpose. Someone watches the show frequently, and I'll put it this way. Right now, as we are live, we have 25,555 as I read the concurrent viewership. But there are only 5,839 likes. Certainly, y'all should smash the like button, right? But this is obvious. Some people ask, why is it that there's so many viewers and they won't even bother clicking, I like this? Because many people, and I mean no disrespect to most of you, are passively watching. It's like, I like the show, it's whatever. You don't think too much about it. You turn the show on, you listen, and it's in the background, and then you go about your business. You don't have to do anything for me. You can watch the show. It's free. YouTube knows this. YouTube knows that if they want to ban me outright, they'll create a bunch of press. It could actually raise my profile and send my viewers to other platforms and actually increase my reach by having me be part of a big news cycle story, getting a bunch of attention, so they need an alternate strategy. The way these machines work, very similar to what this COVID czar said, is that they will make it slightly more difficult for those of you that are watching. So the passive viewer who watches relatively often, but doesn't share, doesn't smash the like button, and again, I'm not saying you have to, we just appreciate it if you do. One day, you open up YouTube and you're scrolling and you're like, I can't find it, whatever, I'll watch some other show. And so you do. These are not the core diehard fan. They're the default viewer that they're familiar with the show. I meet people on the street and they'll say, oh, yeah, I watch your show sometimes. That's the kind of individual that doesn't every day turn it on at 8 and say, yeah, woohoo, we got Timcast IRL live. That's the kind of person that says, yeah, I watch sometimes. And if YouTube removes my show from this person's subscriptions, removes the show from their recommendations, doesn't send them notifications the show is live, they're going to say, why is it so hard to find this show? Eventually, they'll just click something different. YouTube says, you can watch the show if you want, but look over here. We've got a shiny liberal talking about the news. Why don't you watch them? Look how easy it is to click Stephen Colbert. And that's how it works. And then over time, viewership declines. Subscriber growth declines. And I'll tell you how I know this is true. When we started running ads, we did a bunch of ads in 2022, billboard ads, and that was more of a building a presence in Times Square and in Chicago. New York and Chicago, we ran ads. And I was like, I want to see how this converts. I want to see if it generates attention. And then recently, in the past couple of months, we began running actual YouTube ads. So on YouTube, many of you may have seen them. You may have subscribed because of it. It's just me saying, for the best show in news, come watch Timcast IRL. Click the link, subscribe, see you there. It's been particularly effective. But when I first launched these commercials, Google rejected them for no reason. So and I said, it's political. You can't do it. I said, there's nothing in this commercial that's political. It's me saying, watch the best show in news. I said, news, culture, and politics. I said, okay, fine. I will not say politics. For the best show in news and culture, watch Timcast IRL. Nope, it's political. And I said, okay, so I'll remove all imagery. So it's just me in the room with nothing else saying, for the best show in news and culture, watch Timcast IRL, click the link. And they still said, denied. Your ad is politics. And so I appealed and it got denied. And I appealed again. And I said, explain to me how this falls under any of your restrictions. And they finally relented and said, you're right, it doesn't. And then guess what happened? The episodes that were featured in the original ad got deleted. That's Alex Jones and Joe Rogan, two of the biggest shows we've ever done. 3 years after we did them, deleted with a warning. And I said, it's no coincidence. You see, what they were trying to do is tiny room shadow ban us, restrict the amount of people who can watch what we do to create pressure so that you can't watch us call this stuff out. I'll bring it back because I don't want to rant too much, but take a look at what is on the page right now. The COVID czar of New York saying he wanted the mandate. He wanted to make your life as miserable and difficult as possible so that you were forced to get the vaccine, even if you didn't want it. And the terrifying thing is, as I called out when this happened, I appeared on Fox News and said, there are no medical exemptions to this. That's insane. No medical exemptions? If your doctor says you can't do it, they're still going to deny you school, still going to deny your work. And this guy the whole time was having drug-fueled sex parties in violation of his own ordinance, orders, whatever. They don't want you to watch a show like this because this show breaks that narrative. They want you to sit down, shut up, and do as you're told, but they have to be clever about it. They can't come out and mandate a vaccine by force. They have to do it by pressure. So we didn't say we'll arrest you. We just said you can't go to your favorite restaurant. Hey, but you have no right to go to a private business. You can walk around the city and go to the park and do whatever you want. But you're not going to hang out with your friends. You're not going to get to go to the movies. You're not going to get to watch that great sporting event. Meanwhile, this dude doing drugs on Wall Street, having orgies. They don't want you to realize that they break all the rules. You know what it's like? Watch that movie Equilibrium with Christian Bale. It's an old dystopian sci-fi film where in the future, everyone's forced to take a drug that suppresses your emotions, so they're all robotic. And there's this guy who's in charge. I forgot his name or whatever. But in the end, what basically ends up happening is Christian Bale's character, who is this like super cop, stops taking the drug and starts experiencing emotions after his partner is revealed to be emotional and is not taking the drug. Christian Bale then decides to shut the system down. And when he confronts the guy who's in charge, as it turns out, the powerful elites were never taking the drug. They were living life to the fullest. They were feeling the full spectrum of emotion while forcing everybody else to live like robots. This is it. So this is the machine they build so that you guys struggle to watch this show. That's why I always say share the show right now. Because if everybody who watched just clicked the URL, Control-C, post it on X, post it on Facebook and said, hang out in the chat with me, let's chat and watch the news, we would beat that machine that tries to inhibit our ability to watch shows like this or shows like Steven Crowder. But let's read a little bit more about the information here. Enough ranting with how the machine state is trying to shut you down. They say, Loud with Crowder's Mug Club undercover unit released a new video today exposing Dr. Jay Varma, who was former NYC Mayor Bill de Blasio's senior health advisor during the COVID outbreak. Dr. Varma proudly discusses the role he played in city government from 2020 through 21, while claiming full responsibility for NYC lockdown and vaccine policies. Dr. Varma elaborated that he was not quite following his own guidelines when it came to his personal urges. One of those urges included the need to relieve his work stress through participating in sex orgies. You know what YouTube's going to do now? They're going to be like, these are adult topics and we don't want to recommend this. Dr. Varma said that this party had far more people than was allowed at the time, around 200 individuals. And he was worried he would be recognized by the party attendees after demanding that the rest of the city abstain from such activities by law. But what did he say? I liked living my authentic self. Excuse me? He was saying his authentic self was a criminal, defying the law. Okay, this guy should be criminally charged right now. Will the feds actually do anything? I certainly hope that if Donald Trump gets elected, then we can see some action. We went to some underground dance party underneath a bank on Wall Street. We're all rolling, he said, not COVID friendly. Dr. Varma's actions as the NYC COVID czar come in direct conflict to what he was saying in the public while appearing on TV and press conferences at the time. He told the Mug Club journalist what policies he had ownership of and shared his strategy to force NYC residents to comply with his mandates. I was actually the one who convinced the mayor to make it a mandate. So the way we do it in public health is to make it very uncomfortable to be unvaccinated. They didn't get vaccinated because they heard it's safe. They gave in because it was really hard. I remember Casey Neistat. He's a nice guy, Casey. He tweeted something like, go get vaccinated. And I responded with, go talk to your doctor first. And he responded to me, that's weird. I didn't do that. I just pulled up, into a parking lot and I was able to get the vaccine. And I was like, you drove into a parking lot and had a random person you didn't know inject you with a substance you weren't sure of what it was? I'm just saying, talk to your doctor first. What was really crazy about this moment is that I, of course, the milquetoast fence sitter, which is a joke that dates back now 8 or so years, by the way, even though I'm quite not a fence sitter these days. I said, why is there such opposition from the left to me saying, talk to a doctor? Honest question. Talk to your doctor about whether this is right for you. And I got this response from people saying, because the doctor will tell you to get vaccinated, so all you're doing is creating doubt. And I said, if I'm telling people to go have a doctor to tell them to get vaccinated, what's the problem? The reality was this. Some doctors recommended against vaccination for people who suffer Guillain-Barré or other side effects. There are counterindications here. And these people online were losing their minds that I would dare suggest that some people it's not safe. I mean, talk to a doctor. Don't take my word for it. The reality was they wanted you to walk up to 7-Eleven parking lots where there was a stranger with a needle and just let him inject you. That to me is a terrifying reality that we're in. Meanwhile, the people who claimed to be the ones standing up for safety and security were in fact having drug-fueled adult parties under Wall Street. They were lying to you the whole time. So I got to be on. So the Wall Street Journal wrote a whole story about me being the one that blocks Kyrie Irving from playing basketball. He's an ass because he's trying to Like, I'm not in a position to tell him how to dribble better or how to shoot better. Like, I can be a fan and say, oh, I wish he did it. But I can be like, I can't go coach him. Why is he turning around and saying that he won't get vaccinated? Like, I'm not going to tell him he doesn't know how to dribble and he knows what he's doing. Don't tell me how the science works. That's weird. You were complaining that Kyrie Irving wouldn't do what you want while you were breaking all of the rules that you set. See, these people are little dictators. What they want to do is tell you how to live their lives, and they will not follow the same rules. They'll do whatever they want, while you suffer because of it. Take a look at climate change. Take a look at these global forums where you have these powerful elites have these meetings where they say, we got to cut down carbon emissions. We've got to reduce the need of our use of carbon. And they're all flying in private jets. And they own big mansions. Let me tell you the truth, my friends. The truth. As I see it, because I could be wrong. The issue is not about climate change and never has been. If it was, Barack Obama wouldn't have bought waterfront property in Martha's Vineyard. I mean, the water levels are going to rise and your property is going to be worthless. If it was actually about climate change, then you wouldn't be able to buy any property in Miami Beach because the water levels are rising right now as we speak. If it was actually about climate change, they wouldn't be saying things like, we have only 3 years until the world is over. And then Greta Thunberg deletes the tweet because they're hypocrites. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that human beings are causing environmental crises. It takes the form in some way of climate change, animal extinction events, and things like this. There's something called windshield phenomenon, where people notice that you don't see bugs splatter on your car anymore like you used to back in the 90s. The bug populations have been decimated. When COVID lockdowns happened, they said the earth is healing. And interestingly enough, people are reporting that certain, windshield phenomenon is people are now starting to see bugs and stuff. I don't know. I certainly think that there is an issue, but let me tell you the reality. While humans do pollute, and too many humans pollute too much, and we want to figure this problem out, I think we will. The reality is that when these people come out and say, we've got to cut these things down, what they're really saying is, I see a problem ahead in the future, and I don't want to give up my private jet and my beachfront property, so you should. This guy right here exemplifies it perfectly. Hey, there's a pandemic. All of you have to stop working. All of you can't have your kids go to school. No more movies, no more grocery stores, no more restaurants. Shut your business down so that I can keep living my way. That was always the plan. Rules for thee, but not for me. So I suppose we'll see. Indeed, I believe we will see. We'll jump to the next segment for you guys, which I was planning on doing a moment ago, but we'll talk about what's going on with the Middle East and the fears of World War III escalation. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at Timcast.com right now to support our work. I got to tell you this too. If every single person who watched this show, Timcast or Timcast IRL, became a member at Timcast.com, we would be bigger than Fox News budget-wise. I mean, I got to tell you, when we get 300,000 views in 4 hours or whatever, if 300,000 people signed up for Timcast.com, it'd be crazy. We'd be one of the biggest media companies in the country. And so that's always the big challenge with conversion rate. The people who watch consistently and regularly, how do we convince you to join us in this effort? Some of you can't afford to do it. No harm, no foul. I appreciate you watching the show as it is. We do have sponsors and we do run ads. But consider smashing that like button. Consider sharing this video everywhere you can. And let's fight to make a difference. Next segment will be at 4 p.m. Thanks for hanging out. For those that are watching live, we'll go to your Super Chats. But now just for the rest of you, as I will stress this too, it's a question of how do you, so every day I do this show, we get between, depending on the news day, it's like 20 to 30,000 live viewers watch the morning show, which is relatively new. I used to do it in segments. Now we do it in a 2-hour straight shot. Timcast IRL averages around 43 to maybe, like last night we had, 45,000 concurrent viewers throughout the whole show. No, actually, I'm sorry. It was 47,000. The day before it was 53,000. And that's at one time. The total episodes with the audio version and the YouTube version, just the full shows themselves, do between like 500 and 700,000 views. Then we have clips, which generate another couple million or whatever across the board on various platforms. The question then becomes, how do we convince people who watch a show regularly and know for a fact we have a corrupt media apparatus in this country? We have corrupt political elites who lie, cheat, and steal to benefit themselves at the detriment of everyone else. They watch the show every day to the point where we get a consistent average viewership. How do we convince all of those people? Become a member at Timcast.com for $10, and we will do more. We will hire more people. We will build a bigger news team. Honest question. The reality is that conversion is always super difficult. You know, the Daily Wire, I think they have like 1 million paying members, some ridiculous, or is it 1 million? I think it's a ridiculously huge number with all their talent. And I'm a big fan of those guys. They rock. Matt Walsh will be here later tonight on Timcast IRL. But that's always the challenge of, I don't know, you know, if every single person who watched this morning show, which the morning shows hits between like 200 and 300,000 within a couple hours, and then like the full viewership is going to be like, I don't know, 400 to 500. If every single person who watched just said, this show is important enough to me, the things being told on here are true enough to me. Let's just say this, 95% give it a thumbs up who do watch, but the overwhelming majority don't even give it that like. If every single person who pressed like became a member, we'd be bigger than CNN. I got to tell you guys, if we had 300,000 people sign up to be members at Timcast.com, 300,000, paying $10 a month, generating $3 million per month, holy crap. So what are we looking at? $36 million per year? I could hire Tucker Carlson. Imagine the things we could do with massive budgets like that. That being said, I don't expect everybody to have the ability to become members. We do well enough with all of you guys who do become members and support our work. So, you know, it is what it is. It's just an honest question of, you know, here's a real question for you. What can we do better at Timcast.com to convince people that you should become members? We want to do, you know, expand pop culture crisis and inverted world and offer more than just like this news realm stuff. We want to be a bigger media company because we want to be able to challenge the lies of MSNBC, CNN, and to an extent, even Fox News that plays that establishment. Here's what conservatives are allowed to believe line. That question is, what do we have to do to make that happen? I think the reality is we don't really push as hard as everybody else. Other podcasts famously have teams that cold call people and say like, hey, why aren't you a member of our show? And things like that. We don't do any of that stuff. I try to keep it real. We try to pay well to all of our staff. Other companies just say you're getting a flat rate and all the money you make on the top we keep. Maybe I got to be more of a businessman in that regard. Whatever. It is what it is. But honest question. Outside of all of that, it's a question of how do you get every single person who watches consistently and on average to click the like button and share the show. You know, we'll grab a couple of super chats here. We got Ryan Kirchmeyer says he's Mattress Mac in Houston. He only does it for Houston teams. Indeed, indeed. All right, let's go. ADD hoarding procrastinator says country fell apart in the 90s while being hung over from the 80s. Ban lawyers and legislative and executive branches. Ban lawyers? What do you mean? I don't necessarily disagree, though. The 90s were great. And I feel like the past generations just didn't realize what was being given away. Pelosi's been in office forever, since the 90s. Biden for 50 years or whatever, right? They just dropped the ball. They didn't care about this country. And now we're sitting here in a crisis. Guitarist Gabe says Anakin removing Windu's arm is the equivalent of shooting the gun out of someone's hand. To be fair, though, when you're literally holding someone, like when you're in close quarters combat with like a bladed weapon, let's just say lightsabers, you actually can swing for someone's, arms or whatever. With a firearm, they train you not to do that because you can miss, and that bolt's gonna go somewhere else. If you have a lightsaber and you swing it, your range is only that short distance of 4 feet or whatever. Mizamori says, get a Roku app and I'll become a member. We do have a TV app that is coming out hopefully soon. But it's super difficult to do this stuff. Honestly, you need to make a TV app for every different like brand or whatever, and they try and block you. Like iTunes says something about they don't approve of like something that we're doing, so we got to change it. And that's why we have the Android app and not the iTunes app. It's crazy. Here's the big challenge. I'll tell you this. For where we are at and what we are dealing with and what we need. Like someone said, make a Roku app and I'll be a member. Okay. How do we get the money to hire a team of developers to make a Roku app? There's a clear path towards generating new memberships and revenue, but we need a burst of revenue in order to do it. This is where most companies usually go to an investor and say, we need to bring in $5 million to hire these dev and development teams, development and marketing and expansion. We don't have the immediate capital to do it now, but if we're going to grow and meet our goals, then you go into the negotiations where a guy says $5 million. Okay, well, I want 20% of the company. The problem there is you're giving tremendous power to a person you don't know, whose politics you can't trust. So what do? And then all future revenue that you do make is sliced off by 20% for that investor's ownership when it comes to profits and things like this, which could hinder your ability to develop. What you need then is an activist investor, someone who wants to be involved, but then you run into the ideological challenge. Let's say I go to a guy and he's like, we'll invest. We're going to build out. We're going to do the marketing. We're going to do the infrastructure. We're going to do the lobbying. We're going to go to the big tech companies. We're going to get you featured on all these platforms. We're going to inject $2 million into your company so that we can, develop all of these things. We want X percent of the company. Let's say we say yes to that. And then what happens? One day he comes by and he's like, hey, look, man, they don't just hand you a check for $2 million. They give you $200K per month for, 10 months or whatever, or they'll do $50,000 a month until the $2 million is paid down. And this pays the wages of the developers. He says, if you want these checks to keep coming, I don't want to hear what you're saying about Israel. Okay. We did not get into, I'm not saying literally Israel, but this is the problem with investors when you need their revenue. Imagine you're halfway developed on a program and you're like, our app is going to come out. We promise this to all of our members. People are really excited. They want to sign up. And then an activist investor says, hey, man, I heard what you said about insert company and insert country. I can't be involved if this is what you're going to be saying about this. We might have to pull the plug on this pay structure. And then all of a sudden you're like, now I have a choice. The friction has been placed upon me. That could be the reality. Find a good ideologically aligned activist investor. Let's say we find a good, conservative billionaire and they're like, go for it. And then they come out and they say, we don't want to hear your opinion on abortion anymore, Tim. We want only pro-life opinions. Because this is what we fund and this is what we want to hear. It's like, okay, well, I'm willing to have those conversations with these people. No, we understand that. But we think your position is too middle of the road. Then you have to, okay, now I'm sitting here with a bunch of staff whose paychecks will bounce or just not come. Because this guy came in, there's a whole bunch of issues that come with having to run things in that way. Anyway, I digress. All right, let's grab a couple more before we jump into the World War III show. Rack Brass says, I'm a Timcast member since the start, and for me it's way more expensive because I'm not American. Let's go. Really do appreciate it. I really, really do. Saint Senpai says, I'm a fuel hauler trucker and listen to your shows daily. Hands-free laws deter interacting with the device while driving, my good sir. You see? I'm not saying that everybody who watches and doesn't smash the like button or share is doing anything wrong. I'm saying for those that can, but are just passive listening and don't, what's the way to convince people to be more active? I'm not saying you have to be. We get a good viewership. It allows us to get sponsors and programmatic ads generate revenue for all of us so the business operates, so we do well. Some people can't afford it. I don't want to put, look, I got to be honest, guys. Maybe I'm supposed to be more ruthless. I see all these other shows and you know what they do? They say things like, guys, this is it. If we don't get 1,000 new members, I don't know, we make it to the end of the year. And they do these hard pressure tactics. Twitch streamers, they do the goal thing, like how many members can we get per day or whatever. But there's a lot of hard pressure, guys. There are podcasts, companies, I'm telling you, and they have teams that will call you on the phone and be like, hey, we just noticed that you canceled your membership. And they I used to do all the fundraising stuff. They do this stuff where they're like, look, if we lose you as a member, we can't guarantee that we can make this ship keep going. And then what do we have? Kamala Harris is lying. Biden's lying Democrats. And then this country goes to what? Communists? Man, I'm sorry, but we need you now more than ever. We don't do any of that hard pressure stuff. We talked about, like, can we maybe just send emails to people whose, like, credit cards lapse and say, hey, we noticed your card expired. We wanted to know if you still wanted to be a member because we love your support. We appreciate everything you do for us. But we just ultimately don't do that stuff. I don't know. Now I'm just talking internal business, but I hope it's enlightening. I do. Because you often don't hear, I find this interesting. You know, you have all these shows, all these companies, they don't really talk about internals and what's going on behind the scenes. So you only ever get a really surface level understanding of what's going on. Considering the efforts to censor and shut down independent media, I do think it's valuable for you to hear kind of our thought process. But let's talk about the news. Otherwise, you know, we'll never get to it. We got this story from the Washington Post, but we also have another story from the New York Times. The Washington Post says Middle East braces for Hezbollah response to Lebanon pager and radio attacks. The interesting thing here, that the sentiment we're seeing from the New York Times and other news outlets is that we are both simultaneously facing World War III and Civil War. I know, I'm Tim Pool, and I said the word Civil War, but I got to give it to the New York Times because they're the ones who actually reported this. Don't look at me. Leave me out of your memes. Actually, you can meme me. It's okay. I don't know. No forced memes, though. Only if it makes sense. There's that meme where the guy has, like, he's holding his hand. He's looking at the butterfly and it says, is this insert thing? And it's like Tim Pool, is this Civil War? And it's a butterfly. But the New York Times is saying that the international community is concerned. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, that with the election coming up, there is a real fear towards the U.S. turning into a civil war. At the same time, with the explosions that have rocked Lebanon, and a fear of retaliation from Hezbollah, excuse me, as well as what we're currently seeing in Russia and Ukraine, the question asked by communists over at thecommunist.red, are we facing World War III? Shout out to, like, I don't really want to shout them out, but I absolutely wanted to use communist.red to point out the fears of World War III and Civil War are upon us. The big question, of course, has to do with Israel's radio and pager attacks. One of the most sophisticated and precision-based strikes on a country. Fact. You can disagree with it. You can say it's terrifying. You can say it's terrible. Call it whatever you want. That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But as a fact, this was the most sophisticated precision and probably the most precise strike ever carried out against a military target. Will this escalate us into a major international conflict? And should the U.S. election drive us to civil war? Holy crap. What can we expect in the coming year? Well, you know what? As Alex Jones always used to say, buy your gold, people, because the end, or, you know, whatever. I don't know, because they're coming for your income tax. I mean, you buy gold, you still got to pay taxes. I'm just saying. The Washington Post reports Lebanon is reeling from 2 consecutive days of deadly explosions of electronic devices as countries across the Middle East wait anxiously for Hezbollah to announce its response. In a widely anticipated speech Thursday, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the Hezbollah militant group, is expected to outline how the group intends to retaliate for the attacks, which killed at least 32 and injured more than 3,000 on Tuesday and Wednesday, when pagers, and then the next day, walkie-talkies and other devices exploded simultaneously across Lebanon. Israeli authorities, who rarely discuss operations in other countries, declined to comment on whether Israel was responsible. But the sophisticated and complex operation bore the hallmarks of Israel's intelligence agency Mossad, which has a history of carrying out targeted assassinations abroad. U.S. officials have acknowledged Israel was behind the attack. 2 U.S. officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive subject said the Israelis did not inform the U.S. about the specifics before the attack took place, but told Washington afterward through intelligence channels. With anxiety swirling over whether there will be more attacks involving wireless devices, Beirut's international airport has banned passengers from carrying pagers and walkie-talkies onto any aircraft. Lebanon State News Agency reported the Lebanese army said Thursday that it was still detonating suspicious communication devices across the country. The explosions, which began on Tuesday afternoon when thousands of pagers used by Hezbollah members beeped simultaneously before erupting, sent people streaming into hospitals across Lebanon, many having lost eyes or hands or suffering serious abdominal injuries. 2 children were among those killed Tuesday, Lebanese Health Minister Firas Abiad said Wednesday. Taiwanese pager manufacturer Gold Apollo, whose logo was seen on some of the destroyed pagers, said it did not make the devices that exploded in Lebanon. The company said in a statement that the pagers in question were entirely handled by a Hungarian company called BAC Consulting, KFT. BAC did not respond to requests for comment. Hungarian government spokesman Zoltán Kovacs said the reference devices have never been in Hungary. On Wednesday afternoon, a new round of detonations involving two-way radios and fingerprint analysis devices, according to Lebanon Civil Defense, killed at least 20 people and damaged or set fire to homes, shops, and vehicles in northern Lebanon. The eastern Bekaa province and Beirut southern suburbs, at least one of the explosions occurred at a funeral in those suburbs held by Hezbollah for people who were killed in Tuesday's blasts. Let me tell you, my friends, pagers exploded, killing people. At a funeral for one of these individuals, a radio explodes. They're saying other devices are wired too. They have no idea what's been wired to blow. The fears of World War III, I think it's real. Jerusalem Post is reporting that Israel thwarted an Iranian plot to assassinate Benjamin Netanyahu. Yoav Gallant, Ronan Bar. The Shin Bet unveiled an Iranian assassination plot targeting Netanyahu, Defense Minister Gallant, and Shin Bet Director Ronan Bar. I believe they have the man in custody. They say they plotted to assassinate them. Its efforts were particularly intense following the assassination of Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran on July 31st. The plot was to use an Israeli businessman named as Moti Maman, 73 years old from Ashkelon, who spent extensive time living in Turkey and had financial dealings with both Turkish and Iranian persons to develop assassination plans in Israel. Now, a lot of people don't like Israel. That's fine. A lot of people don't like Netanyahu. I get it. But what do you think happens with Donald Trump facing two assassination plots, Netanyahu now facing an assassination plot, exploding devices all across the Middle East, as well as escalation in Ukraine? What is a third world war going to look like? Look, there are a bunch of articles about it. There's a bunch of articles just when you Google search it. These are the things. I don't know what Divided We Fall is, but it's a website that pops up on Google search. So they're certainly in the algorithm. America is at a crossroads, another civil war possible. I'm sorry, these are Civil War articles. The Wall Street Journal says U.S. shrugs as World War III approaches. A devastating report on global threats and America weakness is met with indifference. The Economic Times says, are we in for a World War III? Here's what you should know. And we have the communists, as I mentioned. I love this source because it's silly. Are we facing World War III? From Washington to London, Kiev to Tel Aviv, the war drums are banging ever louder. As the Western imperialists and their henchmen look to prolong and escalate the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, we say down with all the warmongers. You know, I got to hand it to the communists. I at least agree with them on that. And it's interesting. They'll say it's far right, it's pro-Russia or whatever. If you simply question U.S. involvement in these conflicts, you have to be hoorah, war all the way. If you do not jump on the gravity bomb and ride all the way down, like in Dr. Strangelove, you're a Russian plant, you're a far left, you're a far right, whatever. But here we go, baby. It ain't just World War III, it's Civil War. The New York Times has written about it quite a bit. Why? I got a question for you guys. Why does the New York Times keep writing that Civil War is coming? Isn't that crazy? Little out there, eh, New York Times? Now, in this article I brought up the other day, which is literally just from 2 days ago, they say that the second attempt on the former president's life have accentuated international concerns, raising fears of violent turmoil spiraling towards civil war. Keir Starmer, the British prime minister, is very worried and deeply troubled by what the FBI said was an attempt to kill Trump at his Florida golf course, fewer than 50 days before the election. They say yet violence has played a core part in this stormy, lurching American political campaign, and not only in the two apparent assassination attempts. There is now widespread concern across the globe that the November election will not end well, and that American democracy, once a beacon to the world, has frayed to the breaking point. In Mexico, where elections this year were the most violent in the country's recent history, with 41 candidates and aspirants for public office assassinated. Jeez. Wow. Obrador, the president, said, even though what has happened is still unclear, we regret the violence against Trump. At a time of wars in Europe and the Middle East and widespread global insecurity as China and Russia assert the superiority of their autocratic models, American precariousness weighs heavily. Corentin Sellin, a French history professor, said the brutalization of American politics has left France wondering whether the presidential campaign will finish peacefully. France was stunned, he said, by the January 6, 2021 storming of the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters. And there is this notion that the story that started with the insurrection has not yet ended. The threat of violence at times, even the need for it, has been a core part of Trump's message. Lies. Trump has never called for violence. That is a lie. And to that, I will stress, nor has Kamala Harris nor Joe Biden. They have all condemned it. That being said, we can certainly recognize that when Democrats come out and say things like Donald Trump is an existential threat, we should get in their faces. They are standing on the line. I don't think it's fair to say they've crossed it. But when you have 2 assassination attempts and then they come out and say, yeah, well, he's still an existential threat, now they're crossing it. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, the Republicans keep saying stop. Look at this. Because Trump says fight, they blame him for violence. This is standard political rhetoric. Standard political rhetoric. Fighting just means pushing back and trying to win. It doesn't mean being physical. The New York Times, full of lies. But they wrote this, an opinion piece. The real path to civil war. This week, Donald Trump was put on trial by a liberal prosecutor on what seems like the most nakedly political on multiple charges that he's facing. To protest this outrage against their glorious leader, the MAGA faithful gathered outside New York courthouse in the thousands, ready to storm into the halls of justice. Oh, please. This article, of course, is from April 17th. The fairly pitiful scene, blah, blah, blah. Some people who like civil war find the political lacuna admirable, since it cuts the movie, and they're talking about the film. Some people who dislike the movie, I'm one of them, think that the under-explanation is a total cop-out, making civil strife seem like a natural disaster or a zombie apocalypse. I actually agree. The film was good because it mocked journalists. It showed the depravity of journalists. I agree with that. But the film didn't explain any of how civil war comes to be or ultimately what it means. A lot of people think that these days, they say, here's a short list of the reasons. They say, if you think we're obviously teetering on the brink of a disaster, it's easier to accept a work of art that imagines us tipped over. A lot of people think that these days, so here's a short list of the reasons they're wrong. America's ideological divisions don't follow the kind of geographical or regional lines that lend themselves to a secessionist movements or armed conflict. I'm going to pause there. Answer for this guy's ignorance. As I often mention, people think civil war means the North and the South fighting. Take a look at the Spanish Civil War. The uprising was in various pockets across the country. Certain areas were Republican, certain areas were communist or whatever. It's very different. You don't need geographical lines for a civil war. That's insane. That's stupid. He says America's political coalitions have become less polarized by race and ethnicity of late, not more. What does that mean? Less polarized by race? Is he implying that a civil war will require racial division? America is getting older and richer with every passing year, both of which strongly disincentivize transforming political differences into military ones. People right now feel like they're in a recession, despite what the government is saying. And such disincentives are especially strong for the elites who would need to divide into opposing camps. You do not need that. You need only cultural divides. Above all, a civil war needs people eager for the fight. A lot of people for continent-wide war, or the kind depicted in the movie, but a critical mass even for a lower grade form of civil strife, like Northern Ireland's Troubles. And relative to the past eras of crisis in our history, from the 1860s to 1960s, Americans today just do not display any great enthusiasm for politically motivated violence. Instead, the gap between the Sturm and Drang online and the handful of Trump supporters at the courthouse this week is representative of one part of our condition, an enthusiasm for online conflict, virtual combat, rage tweets, and hate clicks as substitutes for brawling and bombing in the real world. I'd like to now say, since 2018, we've seen an escalation of street violence, culminating in two major political moments. The Summer of Love riots, which saw around 30 deaths, the worst riots in 50 years, the storming of the White House, the firebombing of the White House, the president rushed into an emergency bunker as hundreds, or over 100, I should say, law enforcement were injured. Then the riots at the Capitol on January 6th. Now, this man writes this article amid all of this and still just says nothing is happening anywhere. Nobody's fighting in the streets. Did you forget? You people scream about January 6th every 5 minutes. But now we're looking at two assassination attempts. Only a couple months after he wrote this, Trump was shot in the side of the head, narrowly dying. Or I should say narrowly surviving. Sorry. Almost being killed. So what is this? He says, what about a second Trump administration as the spark, given that the last Trump administration ended? What about January 6th? What about, to be more bipartisan, the waves of protest and violence in the summer of 2020? He gets to it, you see. The city's on fire, the tear gas outside. Didn't Americans show an appetite for internecine conflict then? The answer is they did, albeit up to a well short of the 1860s point. But the breakdown happened only in a pandemic year under extremely unusual conditions and pressures most people had never experienced before. A once-in-a-century global plague and an unprecedented shutdown of society converging with a fraud election did indeed break through the torpor I'm describing. But once circumstances normalized, the appeal of protest dissipated. There was no follow-up to January 6th on the right. No wave of insurrectionary violence carried out by true believers in President Biden's illegitimacy. No rush to join the Proud Boys by ordinary right-wingers. Likewise, on the left, the racial reckoning was subsumed back into bureaucratic politics. The Chaz Commune in Seattle was dismantled rather than imitated. Antifa receded back into the shadows. You know, this guy is just wrong. He's not completely wrong. I'll give him some. But it's important to point out that the Minneapolis Autonomous Zone maintained the George Floyd zone. He goes on to say, maybe a pandemic substantially worse than COVID, which prompts states to close their borders and splits the country much more completely and viciously, say New York and Florida's pandemic policies. Maybe some radical technological development on the frontiers of AI, maybe a climate crisis. What I'm offering here are basically notes on the Civil War screenplay, suggesting for how it could have made its vision of war coming home seem more realistic. But they all involve something more than just an extension of current trends, a slightly heightened version of contemporary politics. Could it happen here? Maybe. But something stranger than just Trump v. Biden round 2 would have to happen first. Okay, now let's assess that, because I'll give respect to his statements and his opinions. Someone tried to kill Donald Trump on July 13th, and Trump narrowly survived. Someone just tried to kill him again. Here's a real path to civil war. Someone shoots Donald Trump. Do we really think that it ends here? When you see these cases, these people are being emboldened by what they're seeing. It's terrifying. Secret Service needs to double their protection on all of our political leaders. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Trump, Vance, and maybe even others. If they can do it, they can't be spread too thin. But here's a real path to civil war. All the things you described culminating in Donald Trump losing his life. There's so many scenarios that could result in abject chaos. I believe it was 1876. I always confuse the year, where, fearing another civil war was about to break out, instead of having the electorate decide the presidency, a committee of Democrats and Republicans got together and negotiated who the president would be. They wanted to avoid a civil war. Is it possible that in this election, in 47 days, they tell us there will be no clear victor? They're going to say, you're going to have to wait a couple weeks before we know who actually won. Could it be that facing such extreme turmoil and strife, that the deep state has a negotiation with Trump, the MAGA camp, and says, we need to avoid a civil war in this country? I don't know. You see, when the American Civil War happened, we weren't entangled in foreign conflict in various countries. So what I'm looking at that terrifies me is U.S. military bases all over the world, international conflict where there's assassinations, regional conflict is growing in the Middle East. Ukraine invades Russia and is now requesting the use of long-range Western U.S. and NATO weapons. You add that to the conflict we are facing on the streets of this country and the assassination attempts on Donald Trump, and it all gives you a terrifying image of what could happen. I don't have any answers for you. I really don't. I hope this guy's right. I hope people are just bloviating and nothing happens. But what do you think happens if Trump loses? I don't think the unions and all of these other groups that are supporting Trump are just going to sit by and be like, well, that's it. I guess America's over. I don't think the American people will stand to tolerate cartels and migrants and gangs taking over apartment buildings or the grilling of cats. We saw the video. There's a video of people from the Congo grilling cats, and the media just says it's not true. I don't see the media apparatus surviving and maintaining their stranglehold on the narrative. I see a continued bifurcation with no off-ramp. How do the American people reconcile the extreme polarization? That is, one faction advocating for the sterilization of children and child sex changes, and the other trying to ban it. I mean, these are extreme things. Well, there's a simple reality. And that reality is that liberals don't have kids. They stop having kids, and then what ends up happening is conservatives have more kids, and things start to calm down as conservatives take more and more power, liberals just slowly cease to exist. Their ideas go with them. The NPC default libs just adhere to the modern cultural standard and say, I was always conservative. Perhaps. Or perhaps an international incident leads to a domestic incident, and then we get World War III and the Civil War at the exact same time. I'm going to leave it there. Smash that like button, my friends. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with all your friends if you really do like the show. Next segment will be coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then. And for the rest of yous, we got the Iranian hacker story. Perhaps I'll have to get to the story of the possessed young girl at another time. Maybe we'll do, I think I'm going to be live on Saturday and Sunday, mind you. Tomorrow will be the culture war in the morning. But I think Saturday and Sunday we'll do the morning show, I guess. It might be tough. News is weird. This is the weirdest news cycle I've ever experienced. We are in one of the most dire circumstances we've been in a long time as a country. The election is a month and a half away. And I got to be honest, news is sluggish, strangely. And in 2020, it was insane. In 2018, it was insane. The news never stopped. There were too many stories. Crazy. I'll grab just a couple super chats and then we'll go to this next segment here for you guys. Giovanni Garcia says the cats are eating the immigrants. Yo, cats eat people, man. That's true. Noah Kickaboo says it's obviously much harder to build a business without investors, but you not wanting anyone to shackle your opinion is part of why I am a member. Keep it the good work and stay safe. I'll let you guys in on another big secret. There's a lot of criticism for the way the Daily Wire handles their sponsor spots because they want to integrate sponsor reads better. So they do this thing where they'll say something like, you'll be watching and they'll say, I am absolutely tired of watching the Biden-Harris administration lie about the economy. I am sick of it. So you know what I need when I'm tired? A good night's sleep. That's why I go to mypillow.com/Tim and pick up a pair of My Pillows today. That's how Daily Wire integrates a lot of their sponsorships. I don't know if they do it all the time, but people have brought that up, that it's like jarring or whatever. Well, there's no real good way to do it. You know what I mean? For us, I don't do any ad reads mid-show. But YouTube and iTunes and Spotify, they have programmatic automatic insertion. Like they automatically choose an ad and then it gets dropped in. And so you'll be listening and then the ad plays, right? And so we do need the sponsor revenue to make the show work for sure. But I can tell you this. A lot of people say that, I appreciate you don't do these ad reads, Tim. But I can tell you the secret in the media industry. Most companies will never care about your opinion when you say that. When I first started doing the show, I was concerned that if I put an ad read in the beginning, people would just leave the video and the views would collapse. Never happened. Most people say, no, it's okay. You can do ads. We understand you need to do them. What usually ends up happening is every person I've ever talked to about starting a show, they always fear if I do sponsor spots in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, people are going to get mad. I'm going to lose viewers. It never happens. Never once. Me, it's more of a flow thing. But I get a ton of people right now. The amount they say, like, I'll just tell you the numbers. We'll give you full transparency on how these podcasts work. So a show like this with its current viewership could probably generate about $3,000 from a pre-roll ad. Meaning if I start the show and say, hey guys, before we get into the show, this is brought to you by castbrew.com, by Cast Brew Coffee. Now we own that, so there's no pay. It's just our coffee company. But most companies would pay around $3,000 to $5,000 for an opening slot ad read. Mid-roll, which would be maybe at like 40 minutes. Maybe I end a segment and say, before I jump into this next story, let me give a shout out to our next sponsor. That could be $1,500, could be $2,000. And I don't do that. And that means I get all these people coming to me and they try and play this dirty game. I know you guys, and I know you're hearing me right now. They say, Tim, we want to license your show and we're going to pay you this massive sum of cash. Look how much money we're going to give you. And I go, oh yeah? If I do mid-roll ad reads, that's how much money I'll make. Probably more. So what you're really saying is, I don't do mid-roll ad reads. I don't do end-roll ad reads. And if I do, on the live shows, we'll add tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And you want to buy the rights to the show so that I'm contractually obligated to read ads that you get the money for because I'm not doing it. They think I'm stupid and don't know that if I do the mid-roll ad reads and sell the slots, I'll make substantially more money. They know this. They say, They're thinking to themselves, I can't believe Tim Pool is leaving all this money on the table. He has no idea how much money he's losing. If we sign him and offer him to pay him money, we'll get that ad money. And then every time they come to me and say this, I just say, and I assume as part of the deal, you want mid-roll and end-roll ad reads. And they go, well, of course. And I say, I don't do that. And they go, we know. And I say, great. If I want the money you're offering me, I'll just do the sales myself. So I don't know. Maybe I should do it. Maybe I'm too, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm too purist, I guess. But I will mention this. A lot of people don't seem to understand. I've always said I do pre-roll reads. You right? So when we start IRL, we might have My Pillow, we might have Good Ranchers, we used to do BioTrust, we might have Preserve Gold sponsored the show the other day. Because I don't mind when the show starts saying, hey guys, this company's helping us do the show. The pre-roll is the most valuable. It's done. But then there's no point in the conversation of IRL where we stop the conversation for the purpose of doing a minute ad read. It's only 1 minute, right? Not that big a deal, but it can be disruptive to conversation. I try to have IRL flow so that when we're talking about the news and we're saying like Kamala Harris's polling is currently at this number, take a look at the betting odds. If I have a story where it's like betting odds skyrocket for Trump, I can then say, let's jump to this next story and then immediately begin the next part of the conversation without interruption. These companies think, hey, we can get Tim to do these reads and make a lot of money. I don't think IRL would ever do that. However, to be fair, there is a potentiality for this morning show to have something like that simply because it's already broken up between segments, super chats, and segments. And the super chat section is basically me reading the sponsors. Like you guys are super chatting me and I'm reading your messages. So I don't think a minute break is too much, but I'm just wary of doing so. I do think, however, I should stop being so purist and may have to recognize that like literally every other podcast, we do sponsor spots for a reason so we can pay the bills, create a rainy day buffer, have money to operate in the event the worst happens, and especially considering following the election, everyone expects revenue to drop because ad sales decline with the election. They spend a lot of money on this stuff. So that's just some behind the scenes business stuff that may help you understand how these podcasts work. So let me just tell you this. If you have a show that gets a total of 1 million views, you're looking at probably just in individual reads on one platform, maybe like $50,000 to $100,000 per episode. If you're looking at premium offerings on top of that, this is the podcast industry. Travis Kelce just signed a $100 million podcast deal for over 3 years, which is $33 million a year. You got to understand that these companies know what his views are. He gets about $1 million per show. They know how much they can sell it ads for on the show and how much they're going to make. And then they're going to pay him a premium because they think they're going to make more than that in the long run. The podcast industry is massive. People make a lot of money off these shows. And so, I can tell you how that stuff works. But let's jump to this story because we're going to go a little bit over, it looks like. And I do have to, I always go too long on these things. I do. Well, not always, but as of recent. In this next segment, let's roll. We've got this one from Politico.com. FBI says Iran sent hacked Trump info to Biden campaign staffers. The emails were sent in June and July to individuals associated with the Biden campaign. They say the emails sent to those of the Biden campaign contained an excerpt taken from stolen, non-public material from former President Trump's campaign. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the FBI, and CISA said in a statement. The Iranians have also continued trying to leak non-public Trump campaign material to media organizations since June, the agency said. The latest disclosure shed new light on the myriad tactics Iran has employed to damage the Trump campaign and how persistent it remains despite U.S. officials calling out its first attempt to leak stolen campaign documents this August. Politico first reported on the attempted hack and leak effort that month. It's unclear to what extent the then Biden campaign read or made use of the information the Iranians sent. The three agencies said the emails were unsolicited and campaign staff did not reply to them. Morgan Finkelstein, a spokesperson for the campaign of Vice President Kamala Harris, which replaced Biden, said in a statement Wednesday, "We have cooperated with the appropriate law enforcement authorities since we were made aware of the information being sent to the Biden campaign personnel." Whoa. This means that Kamala Harris is a stooge of the Iranians. The Iranians. I was going to say something else there. The Kamala Harris campaign is secretly, wow. Come on. When these companies try to screw with us and lie, cheat, and steal, okay, I'm not going to blame the Harris campaign for this. Let's not be silly, if you get what I'm trying to say. We're not aware of any material being sent directly to the campaign. A few individuals were targeted on their personal emails with what looked like a spam or phishing attempt. We condemn in the strongest terms any effort by foreign actors to interfere in U.S. elections, including this unwelcome and unacceptable malicious activity. Carolyn Levitt, Trump's campaign spokesperson, said the development is further proof the Iranians are actively interfering in the election to help Kamala Harris and Joe Biden because they know Trump will restore his tough sanctions and stand against their reign of terror. Kamala and Biden must come clean on whether they used the hacked material given to them by the Iranians to hurt Trump. What did they know and when did they know it? During a rally Wednesday night in New York, Trump accused Iran of foreign election interference, but said he was unsure what material the country's hackers sent to his former opponent's campaign. Iran hacked into my campaign. I don't know what the hell they found. I'd like to find out. Couldn't have been too exciting, he said. Politico first reported in August that Trump campaign was the victim of a hack and leak campaign later tied by federal authorities to the private sector companies private sector companies to Iran. After Politico was among the media groups that received stolen campaign documents. The FBI has been tracking this activity, has been in contact with the victims, and will continue to investigate and gather information in order to pursue and disrupt threat actors responsible. The agency said they stressed as well that Iran, along with Russia and China, are trying by some measure to exacerbate divisions in U.S. society for their own benefit and see election periods as moments of vulnerability. It's the BRICS nations, my friends. This is where we are currently headed in terms of how the global conflict is going to happen. The BRICS nations are up against NATO. NATO is struggling. The petrodollar is failing. And I got to be honest, I fear for the worst. But, I think the bigger concern that I have is that the play may be the play itself. Know what I mean by that? The information is not the play. The hacked materials is not the play. Iran can easily blast out a bunch of emails claiming they have information, starting a news story where Trump then says they're being helped by Iran. And what happens? Divisions are sown the moment you accuse your political opponents of being funded or fueled or inspired by our enemies. Sorry, that's just true. So I'm not going to blame Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Democrats because Iran is trying to screw with us. And I think it's silly when we talk about the Russia situation that we're fanning the flames of division based off a story that claims Russia is trying to fan the flames of division. How about we just say, guys, they're tricking us, okay? Let's keep our political disputes to the American people and stop playing the game they're trying to make us play. Otherwise, I suppose we get the worst. Here we go. From the New Republic, new emails expose election officials' plot to unleash chaos to swing things in Trump's favor. This is exactly what I'm talking about, where we're headed. Everything is a Trump secret plot. This country is divided, and I don't think it matters if foreign interference is going to be the key to dividing us. We're divided now. I don't see how we come together. They say Republicans are suppressing the vote because they're evil fascists. Whoopi Goldberg says it's not both sides, it's one side. Meanwhile, anti-Trump extremists on the left are trying to kill the president. Well, presumably on the left. Jamie Raskin said Congress must disqualify Trump, predicted civil war conditions in this country. That's right. Quote, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. Raskin actually said at an event that were Trump to win, Democrats will disqualify him on January 6, 2025. They'll just say, we don't care that he won. He's disqualified. We will not certify this election. You don't need Iran. You don't need China or Russia. The Democrats are doing it fine by themselves. They say that January 6th was an insurrection. They want the narrative to be that the right is hell-bent on the destruction of this country. This video clip making the rounds is actually from earlier in the year.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new center so we can bring that.
And there it was. It's an older video from earlier in the year that went overlooked. Only a few thousand views. What are we supposed to do about this? Honest question. Honest question for those that are watching that want to, comment and share and ask your friends, ask your family. Jamie Raskin says Congress must disqualify Trump and predicted civil war conditions. How do we avoid that scenario? I don't think you can. It's funny because in my earlier segment, we're talking about the potential for civil war. And you've got this writer saying it can't happen. But forgive me, if I go to the Democrats and say, guys, please, if the American people vote for Trump, Trump needs to be president, they're going to say no. Raskin is literally saying here that when the rampaging Trump mobs are out, they're going to say, sorry, Trump's disqualified. Now let's entertain what that means. There's no reality where Trump loses the election and then they come out and say Trump's disqualified. They just come out and say Trump lost. They say there was a fair election. It was free and fair. It was the most secure and Trump lost. If Trump wins, that's when they must move to disqualify him. What he is saying is when it comes to the electoral vote count, the certification on January 6, 2025, he is saying Democrats must block that from happening. How am I supposed to reconcile the Democrats and simmer things down when they are threatening to overturn the election and remove the duly elected president? What do you say? Because I guarantee you, you go to Democrats and you ask them and they're going to say they should. Okay. I don't have to tell you. If we had a clean election, my friends, that was plainly visible, paper ballots, completely and literally secure to the point where you knew for a fact, and Kamala Harris won, I'd be upset. But that'd be it. I'd prep. I'd buy gold, probably. There's some billionaire who's saying if Kamala wins, buy gold. I'm not giving any financial advice on that one. But when the candidate you like doesn't win, we just try and live our lives and carry on. That's how elections are supposed to work. Even if it is seriously bad, we have to do the work, the cultural work, and try and win next time. If the election looks, let's just call it fishy, then we advocate for proper adjudication. But that's about it. In this regard, they're telling us outright there's no circumstance where Trump wins and they're going to let it run. What's the only outcome that is going to be chaos? The one thing we have to have happen in that case, my friends, Donald Trump must win. Republicans must win in Congress and the Senate to prevent Congress from being able to pull anything like this off. I'm pretty sure that Congress gets sworn in on January 3rd, and it will be the new Congress then. I could be wrong about this, but I think it's the new Congress then. Actually, let me make sure this is all correct. When does Congress term end? Because I think January 3rd, right? It's not term, it's the session. It's the session of Congress. And it's, they can't tell me, can they? When is the end of congressional session? Man, you know what? I'm going to sit here and do the work. When does Congress get sworn in? How about that? Because I'm pretty sure it's January 3rd. January 3rd following each election year. And so I'm pretty sure, just to clarify, does that mean new Congress certifies the 2024 election? And that may not be the case. Yes, the new Congress will be responsible for the election on January 6th, joint session of Congress. This means that Republicans have to win the House. If Democrats gain the majority in the House and Trump somehow wins, however that happens, then they're just going to block him and they're going to say he's not president. Bye. That'll be weird. I don't know what to expect after that. So, my friends, I hope you're paying attention. I hope you're preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com to support our work directly. Share the show if you like it. Follow me on X at Timcast, and we will see you all tonight at 8 p.m. at youtube.com/TimcastIRL for our nightly show. Tonight, Matt Walsh is joining us. I hope. It should be fun. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all then. We're a few minutes over, but I will grab a couple super chats here. Mr. Potato said, BTC making runs up 10% over 2 to 3 days. We love our Bitcoin. We love our Bitcoin. Robert DeVito says, do a mid-roll ad as part of a cultural push. Take care of yourself. Here's a way. You know what I was thinking too? I'll reach out to Public Square because that's actually a really great point. I wonder if there's something we can do where it is a mid-roll ad read, but it promotes Public Square and one Public Square company. So what we then have is Public Square can basically tell the people who are on, like, we're going to, if they are interested, I'm not saying they will, but like my pitch to Public Square would be buy a mid-roll ad for the morning show, the ad will run at 11 a.m. That's usually peak viewership as it is. And then in it, we promote Public Square, the app, and a company alongside it. So it's a minute ad read. We say, download the Public Square app. I'm a big fan of Public Square, by the way. The marketplace for people who believe in American values. And all the companies that are on it are good companies as well. Maybe that's something they're interested in. But, thinking about it, I think, I don't know. The morning show, I think, is it's very easy to do the mid-roll ads. And I will tell you, too, here's how it works with the morning show. When I used to break it up into segments with no live portion, it was a shorter show. It was an hour 20. And when it got uploaded to iTunes and Spotify, or an hour 10. But one person watching 4 videos is 4 views. So YouTube boosts you in the algorithm. You get more ad plays. You get higher CPMs. Doing the live show, one person watches the whole 2-hour show. They're not going to watch the clips later, so viewership goes down. It looks like you're getting less views, but you're actually getting better retention. YouTube don't care. So this does affect CPMs and algorithms and things like that. We may pick up mid-rolls, but I'll make sure they're good ones if we do. But I don't think we would do that on Timcast IRL because IRL is a conversation show. That being said, my friends, smash that like button. Follow me on X. Become a member at timcast.com. Support our work if you like it. We're back tonight at 8 p.m. as I already mentioned. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and I will see you all then.